Newton's public school proposed budget for fiscal year 2023 has a deficit of approximately $4 million. This gap will remove 39 full-time employees from various public schools. During the school committee's public hearing regarding the budget, parents, teachers, and students remarked on how removing teachers at this time is a bad idea. Students and teachers have been dealing with the COVID pandemic and have endured social and emotional problems because of it. The public is asking for the mayor to use ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds, to close the gap so no teachers are let go. Even 12 city councilors sent a letter to the mayor requesting the use of ARPA funds to close the gap. Here's what the public had to say.
I'm going to speak today about my experience, which is at the high school. The high school has no loss of enrollment and is at max capacity through 2027, yet that fact, which is in your presentations, is never discussed openly. It's very penny wise and pound foolish to make some of the cuts that the school committee has rejected. And thank you very much, everyone on the school committee, so much for watching out for our children. I guess this is, definitely aimed more at the mayor. It's penny wise and pound foolish to make these cuts. I'd like to remind everyone, it seems no one's talking about it, that we're in a mental health crisis. The CDC just released their data 3 days ago. I don't have time to go into it, but I advise you to look at it. At the teen level, at the high school level, it is indeed a crisis. Mayor Fuller, we are in lifeboats and we're watching the Titanic sink. We're asking you for help, and for you to tell us to just grin and bear it and get creative is unacceptable. And we really need help like right now. The American Rescue Plan Act has very specific, and notice the word rescue, has very specific provisions for exactly the things that are happening now. Loss of revenue at the city level that affects schools, and also for mental health for teens. So I'm asking that you not only restore all the cuts, we have 4.7% inflation, we have over 5% utilities, as Liam presented the other day. I'm asking you to restore all the cuts that use the American Rescue Plan for the reason that it was intended. My CFO says it's absolutely untrue that using rescue money to support a budget would entail and result in worse case next year. It's the exact opposite. Some of the cuts that your budget would could cause really long-term, very deep, and very bad cuts. So I just want to say that from an outsider, it looks very classist to me for the mayor to be funding bike paths and cultural affairs for upper middle class white privileged people, which I acknowledge I am, while making cuts that affect students at the high school level and beyond, many of whom are diversity or lower income, or in the elective courses are communities, not classes. So I'm asking us as a community and as a school system, are we classist? Because that's what it looks like right now. And that's not reflecting my values. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Rice. I've been teaching 7th grade social studies at Bigelow Middle School for 13 years. I'm here tonight to encourage you to consider the reallocation of funds to our schools and to redistrict where necessary to provide our students with the quality education they deserve. The severity of the proposed cuts for next school year will impact all schools, and sadly, we all agree they will be detrimental to the social and emotional and intellectual development of Newton students. But I'm speaking tonight to explain how the cuts will be felt even more deeply at Bigelow. Given both the budget deficit and enrollment concerns, Bigelow will experience cuts disproportionate to the rest of the district. 8 positions will be affected for the upcoming school year. That's 10% of our total staff. These cuts will be felt in the following departments: guidance, literacy support, PE, music, world language, and team teachers. These cuts will be far felt beyond the departments just listed. Class sizes will be larger school-wide. There'll be less guidance counselors to support students' emotional needs. Teachers will teach outside of their area of certification, and there'll be a 40 to 50% reduction of after-school clubs because we won't have the staff to provide those enrichment opportunities. Of all the middle schools, Bigelow has the largest percentage of Hispanic, African-American, low-income students, with Newton's district initiative to, quote, narrow the achievement gap with respect to race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. The optics of targeting Bigelow does not seem to best serve this purpose of accomplishing this initiative. Social studies will be the content area most impacted across the district. The district's plan is to address classroom size by eliminating social studies positions. At Bigelow, social studies positions will be cut and curriculum will be taught on 2- and 3-person teams in 6th and 7th grade respectively by teachers not certified in social studies. In a few years, MCAS will be in 8th grade. How can we hold our students accountable to excel in this test when some students in Bigelow will be taught by teachers who are not in social studies certified? It's not equitable. Our colleagues are professional and dedicated, but that doesn't mean they have the background knowledge or the skill set to deliver the same quality education that MPS has historically provided. Given the current plan, a 6th grader at Bigelow today could leave for high school without ever having another certified social studies teacher. Again, this is unacceptable. There must be a better way to move forward where our students' education is the top priority.
Franz and I live at 12 Glastonbury Oval, and I'd like to address the significant impact that the pandemic has had on the social and emotional growth of Newton Public School students. I taught remotely last year, and it was challenging to say the least. And like everyone else, I anticipated academic learning loss would be the primary concern this year, only to find out that the deepest and the most troubling loss for students was in their social and emotional development. The troubling loss for students was in their social and emotional development and their lack of appropriate grade level student skills. This year has been far more difficult than last year. It has felt like being hit by a ton of bricks. It's apparent to anyone working in a school that students need as much adult support, contact, and intervention as possible. These are unprecedented times, and they have resulted in an unprecedented level of issues and call for unprecedented solutions. At this unique moment in history, we have two choices. We cut the very people who are essential to help students move forward in their development and hope that somehow these problems resolve themselves in the next few years. Or we can address students' social and emotional needs head on. And that will require maintaining as many adults with direct student contact as possible. The decisions this community makes in the next few weeks will reflect its values and priorities. And I will go one step further to say that these decisions do reflect our values and priorities. It is my sincerest hope that as a community, our values and priorities support the social and emotional well-being of our students.
I speak today on behalf of my family and the greater Memorial Spalding community. I have the benefit of being a Memorial Spalding, Brown, and Newton South graduate. My son is currently in kindergarten at Spalding. I'm concerned that the city that I grew up in has lost its way. Education has been a pillar of this community, but recent actions by the mayor and other elected officials doesn't indicate that the education has the same importance it once did. We are on the heels of an unprecedented upheaval of our community and our education system that none of us will likely see again. We have so many students needing support no one could ever have imagined 2 years ago. Now is not the time to peel back those efforts. Now is the time to lean in and double down to get all the students help they so badly need. There are a number of issues students and educators are facing for the first time on a large scale. Due to masking, we have students who are just learning to read facial expressions for the first time. We have students who are reading a grade level behind because they spent a year remote during a crucial juncture in their learning journey. Students with social and emotional skill deficits. This is only the beginning. We still need more data to fully evaluate the impacts the pandemic will have on our children long-term. It is the city's fiduciary responsibility to use ARPA funds to supplement COVID-related costs the schools took on so we can have other funds to reallocate to these badly needed support programs. $1.4 million in ARPA money being spent on putting lights on fields is irresponsible use of the money during this unprecedented time. While I was discussing this with my wife, she asked me a question. What if we put education as our #1 priority? The education of our children is paramount. If we have a strong and equitable education system, then our foundation is strong. School committee members and elected officials, I ask that you not weaken our already fragile foundation and use the ARPA money as intended to help our children and the most vulnerable. Prioritize and adding back budget for support programs, reading, math, and other teacher support will build a stronger community. Please ask yourself, what if we put education first?
According to the mayor in her State of the City address, we have excellent schools and outstanding services, and she is offering a generous, in her word, investment. Such systems are not kept excellent and outstanding without constant maintenance and care. The mayor has also pointed out that the proposed budget is more than previous years, and in her March 10th letter wrote that, quote, costs are up and needs have increased. Yes, and an increase of 3.5% does not keep up with inflation and rising costs. Comparing next year's cost to last year's cost is a shell game. Many students and parents are hurting and will be dealing with the impact for years to come. This impact is presented in her letter of March 3rd on the findings of the Newton Community Needs Assessment due to the challenges of the COVID pandemic. The third greatest need listed was meeting mental and physical health needs. As the mayor knows, we do not currently have enough resources for the mental health needs of our community. One of the major places that many of our families find help for these needs are in our schools. According to the current budget, there will be a reduction in middle school and high school counseling. So why are we having a budget that will reduce abilities of the schools to provide for these unmet mental health needs? In addition, not meeting the mental health needs of our students will have a costly ripple effect. We are already seeing more fights and hate crimes in the middle and high schools than previous years. Another effect I worry about are suicides or escalation of violence outside of schools, or young adults in our community having mental health crises that might result in their deaths at the hand of the police. In short, cutting the number of adults in buildings in order to keep costs down now is a false economy. Every adult in the building where I work, Newton South, is trying both to meet the mental health needs of our students, which is more than I have seen in my more than 2 decades of teaching in Newton, and to ameliorate the academic losses of the last 2 years, which will be even slower if the various literacy and math support personnel are reduced as currently proposed. Again, a generous, quote, generous investment of $262 million is a false economy. Let me close by saying that I have never felt so worn down by my work as a teacher, nor so demoralized by the lack of financial support by the city, and that this is not sustainable.